Have you ever noticed how traitors are always the first to victimize themselves? Have you ever found yourself surrounded by people, but completely alone inside? Have you ever noticed that in the most difficult moments, even the sweetest voices simply disappear? That's where it all comes crashing down. Men forget the death of their father faster than the loss of an inheritance. These words of Machiavelli were not said cynically. They are like sharp knives thrown by someone who has seen the truth up close, the truth that few can bear. In the game of power, friendship is a disguise, and trust, an invitation to be destroyed. We live a convenient fantasy. We believe that if we are loyal, fair, honest, we will be rewarded, that the steps we climb with integrity will take us to the top, where true hugs will await us. But the real world is not a fairy tale. Reality is sharp like a dagger hidden behind a smile, and as harsh as it may seem. No one is really your friend. No, this is not paranoia. This is clarity. Machiavelli didn't want to comfort you. He wanted to wake you up. He wrote to strip away his naivety, not to cradle his hope. His words still resonate today because they accurately describe this theater where alliances are false and promises are just rehearsals. How many times have you experienced this? A business partner who posed a threat, a friend who turned his back when you needed him most, people who approached out of interest, extracted what they could, and then disappeared. The truth is cruel. The best actors are not in films. They are in your family, at work, on social media, and even among your closest friends. They smile naturally while inside they calculate how much they can still take from you. This video is not just an analysis of Machiavelli. It's a mirror. And maybe you don't want to look too closely, because you'll see that at some point, you were also the wolf in sheep's clothing. We've all been. And maybe that's why, deep down, we know that no one is completely trustworthy. But calm down. This is not a recipe for becoming cold and cruel. It is an invitation to awareness. It is a call to lucidity. Because in this world, even love can become a bargaining chip. If you're ready to abandon emotional childhood and face what Machiavelli really meant when he said that even allies are temporary, stay, take a deep breath, and come with me. In fact, if this content provokes you, makes you think, takes you out of your comfort zone, then you are the right type of person for this channel. Sign up now. Like this video. Because here, we tell the truth without sugar, the way you need to hear it, not the way you want. From an early age, we are fed the idea that friendship is magical, stories of unwavering loyalty, bonds that overcome everything, friends that never abandon. But real life is not made of this light stuff. She is heavy. It is made of mud and interesting games. Alliances are fragile, the promises temporary, and even the sweetest affection can hide a hidden contract. Machiavelli knew this. In The Prince, he doesn't speak like a pessimist. He writes like someone who ripped off the veneer of human coexistence and saw what lies beneath, a world where friendship is a strategy, not a virtue. One must learn to dissemble, he wrote, and what is disguised, if not affection itself? The truth is that we believe in friendship because we refuse to accept loneliness. It's an emotional antidote, an anesthesia. Believing we have allies gives us peace. It creates the illusion that we are not fighting this war alone. But Machiavelli would be blunt. This we is fantasy. On the battlefield of power, there is only me and others. And the others are smiling as they sharpen their knives. Look around, in the corporate environment, in politics, in art, even among content creators. As long as you serve, you are celebrated. When it is no longer useful, it is discarded. And the worst, the pain of betrayal comes because we confuse interest with affection. We believe that what was said in a moment of emotion would be protected. But, as Machiavelli warned, men offend less those they love than those they fear. The question is, do they fear you? If they don't see you as a threat, sooner or later, they will see you as a victim. And what starts as a trusting relationship ends with you lying on the floor, not understanding what happened. Friendship in the game of power is a play, and the roles change according to the script. Today, you are the protagonist. Tomorrow, the villain. The day after tomorrow, the forgotten extra. It all depends on who is writing the story. Remember the scandals? Public figures being abandoned by their friends at the first sign of a crisis? It's no coincidence. These bonds were never real. They were temporary contracts. When the contract loses value, it is torn up. It may seem sad, but there is freedom in that. When you accept that no one is obligated to be loyal forever, you stop creating impossible expectations, and you begin to see others not as angels or demons, but as players. Some play fair, others not so much. But everyone is playing. It's not about becoming paranoid, but to learn to read the board. Because power is in everything. In love relationships, in friendships, in family. If you don't understand the rules, you will be manipulated by them. Friendship, in this context, is a tool. And like any tool, you either learn to use it or you will be used by it. Machiavelli did not preach evil. He preached awakening. And awakening is understanding that the warmest hug can hide the sharpest knife. That the hand that applauds you today can push you tomorrow. Not because you made a mistake, but because you stopped being useful. The question you need to ask is not, who is on my side, but who would still be there if I lost everything? The traitor never appears like a villain. He approaches with a gentle smile, a friendly shoulder, sweet words. He says he is with you, and maybe it will be, until the tables turn. And when he turns, the smile disappears. The blade appears, not suddenly, but as if it had always been there, hidden, waiting. Machiavelli understood betrayal as part of the game. It's not a deviation, it's strategy. You have to be a fox to know the traps, and a lion to terrify the wolves. Just being good is being a target. Just being fair is being a martyr. Anyone who wants to survive needs to smell falsehood before it turns to blood. And almost always betrayal comes slowly, like poison that acts little by little. First, you feel a strange compliment. Then, an absence, a silence, a decision made without you. Suddenly you realize you are no longer in the game. It was pushed out. For someone who claimed to protect you. The language of betrayal is subtle. It's the ambiguity. It's false care. It's emotional manipulation disguised as affection. While you trust, the traitor digs. Dig into your own words, your secrets, your gestures of good faith. And when you realize it, it's gone. Think of Julius Caesar, surrounded by allies. He was stabbed, not by declared enemies, but by Brutus, his protege, your closest friend. And why? Because the game has changed. Because the interest has changed. Betrayal rarely comes from pure evil. It comes from interest. When protecting you costs more than destroying you, you are destroyed. And if you don't understand this, you will always be surprised. You'll keep asking yourself, why did he change? Without realizing that he was never yours. I was only there while it was worth it. The right question is not, why did they betray me? But, why did I allow them to get so close? It hurts, but it's necessary. Because while you expect unconditional loyalty, the world operates with cold, silent transactions, where every gesture has a price, where every word can be a weapon. And before ending this video, tell me, how many times have you felt this way? How many times have you believed in a smile, opened up, shared, trusted, and been left in the dark? If this touched you, if you saw yourself in that mirror, enjoy this video and subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't deliver comfort, we deliver awareness. Because the truth, however bitter it may be, sets you free. We learn to smile while hiding knives. Society has trained us to do this. He taught us that sincerity is weakness, that vulnerability is ridiculous, that trust is a risk only fools take. And so instead of being honest, we learn to be efficient. Machiavelli did not defend evil, but cunning, the ability to see the world as it is, not as we would like it to be. If everyone is playing, the biggest mistake is being the only one who believes the game doesn't exist. The secret is to be the fox, to smell the blood before it runs, to read between the lines, the silences, the eyes that avoid yours. Betrayal never comes from far away. She is always close enough to whisper in your ear, "I was never really with you. I just waited for the right time, and that time always comes." There is a loneliness that is not physical, but existential, an absence that sets in even when there are crowds around you, an internal cold that grows as you rise, conquer, lead. This is the silent price of power. The higher you get, the more alone you become. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't romanticize the top. He described it with surgical precision, a barren place, populated by false allies, rife with traps. He understood that, upon assuming the crown, the prince did not just inherit prestige. He inherited distrust, isolation, and the burden of not being able to allow himself to be weak. Have you noticed this? When you start winning, the people around you change. They don't speak, but they observe more. They do not disagree, but they criticize in silence. The smile remains, but something in the eyes disappears. Authenticity. The top is a place where language changes. Informality disappears. Hugs become formal greetings. Conversations gain filters. And spontaneity, which is the terrain where friendship flourishes, dies suffocated by protocols, caution, and interests. And when you try to open your heart, you realize that everything can and will be used against you, not out of explicit malice, but out of a collective survival instinct. Her vulnerability there isn't moving, it's dangerous. In a world where everyone competes, exposing a weakness is opening a breach, giving ammunition to the predator waiting for exactly this slip-up. Carl Jung said that loneliness does not mean not having people around, but not being able to share what really matters with anyone. And that's exactly what happens to those in power. You may have advisors, fans, sycophants, but who listens to your raw truth? Who sees your fear, your guilt, your doubt, without turning it into emotional blackmail or political weakness? Few, very rare, perhaps no one. This is why leaders go crazy. That's why great names in history, kings, philosophers, end their days immersed in distrust, paranoia, or absolute cynicism. Because the top is not a sunny porch, it is an isolated beacon, swept by winds of suspicion and storms of manipulation. And loneliness, at that point, stops being a circumstance. It becomes a condition. The world looks at you expecting firmness, expecting answers, expecting leadership. But no one cares about the weight you carry on your shoulders, the fear of falling, the terror of trusting someone in the wrong, the shame of admitting that the throne doesn't bring security, it brings exposure. And this is where the paradox of power arises. The more admired you are, the less loved you feel. The more respected, the less understood. The more surrounded by people, the further away from any true connection. It is the invisible punishment, the scar of someone who had to kill their own ingenuity to remain standing. And the cruelest thing, you can't go down, because going down means being devoured. Returning to total vulnerability is signing your own sentence. You get used to the armor, even if it hurts inside. You learn to love silence, even if it echoes like a scream. Machiavelli knew there is no room for sentimentality in the war of power, but there is pain. And this pain, if it is not transformed into lucidity, turns into poison. Poison that corrodes the soul, that turns leaders into tyrants and tyrants into ghosts. This is where many get lost. They try to anesthetize loneliness with addictions, with sex, with empty applause. They seek in crowds what they cannot find in themselves and forget that the only real cure for the loneliness of power is to accept that it is part of it. It doesn't go away, it doesn't dissolve, but it can become a force. When you understand that isolation is not punishment, but part of the price, something changes. You begin to listen more clearly, plan more coolly, distinguish true gaze from calculated interest. You become your own prince, and that may be the only power that is really worth conquering. Have you ever tried to sleep peacefully after trusting someone wrong? The mind does not silence. He goes over every word, every gesture, trying to understand where the mistake was. But the answer is always the same. You trusted too much. You expected loyalty where there was only interest. And that, my dear, is not bad luck. It is naivety. It's insisting on being a lamb in a land of predators. Machiavelli gave us the map to escape this cycle. Not a map to be loved, not a manual to gain loyal followers, but a brutal guide to survival. And in that guide, he tells us, the prince must be a fox to know the traps and a lion to terrify the wolves. It seems simple, but this phrase hides a frightening truth. Either you learn to manipulate, or you will be manipulated. Either learn to protect yourself, or you will be devoured. Either you develop your own strength, or you will be reduced to a disposable piece on another board. Self-sufficiency here is not about living isolated in a cave. It is about cultivating a mind that does not depend on applause, a heart that is not deceived by praise, a posture that does not waver in the face of pressure. Because the power game doesn't end, it just changes phase. If at the beginning you needed allies to climb, now you need coolness to not fall. If before you wanted to be accepted, now you need to be feared, or at the very least respected. And respect comes from a single source: impenetrability. People only try to take down those who show cracks. They only attack those who react. They only try to control those who let themselves be read. Therefore, the secret is not in appearing inaccessible. It is in becoming unattainable. In practice, this means knowing more than you reveal, revealing less than you feel, feeling everything, but not being shaken by anything. Is it easy? No, but it is possible. And more than that, it is necessary. Look at the current world. It amplified everything Machiavelli already predicted. Today, the battlefield is not just physical, it is psychological, digital, reputational. One tweet, one leaked message, one unresolved crisis, and your image is ruined in minutes. The enemy could be someone you had dinner with yesterday. The attack can come from where you least expect it, and the only defense is to always be 2 steps ahead. Self-sufficiency, in this sense, is more than emotional independence. It is a form of silent warfare. It's about mastering your own ego, your neediness, your rush to please, realizing that the need for approval leaves you vulnerable. When you don't need to be loved, you can't be manipulated. When you don't depend on anyone, no one controls you. When you trust your silence more than the words of others, you become indestructible. Yes, there is a price. You will feel cold. You will feel like you have lost connections, that you can no longer count on anyone. But ask yourself, have you ever been able to? Or have you always been surrounded by emotional contracts with invisible clauses? The great liberation comes when you realize that everything you called friendship was dependence. Everything he called loyalty was convenience. Everything you called love was a reflection of how much you served. And then finally, you choose to be a fox to sniff out the ambush, to be a lion to roar when necessary, but above all, to be whole, to be your own person. Machiavelli wasn't talking about coldness for the sake of coldness. He was talking about true power, the one that no one can steal from you because it's not outside, it's inside. And this power, my friend, is worth loneliness. In the end, what is left when all the masks fall? When the smiles disappear, the applause stops, and silence takes the place of promises? There remains you, only you, with your lucidity, your memory, and if you are wise, your well-cultivated solitude as a shield. Nobody is your friend. This phrase can hurt, but it can also free. Because when you understand this, You stop waiting for others to save you. You stop putting your destiny in the hands of fragile alliances and start, finally, walking with your feet rooted in reality, no matter how harsh it may be. Machiavelli did not want to destroy hope. He wanted to awaken consciousness. And perhaps this is the greatest proof of friendship that someone can offer you, the truth, even if it hurts, even if it burns, even if it leaves you naked in front of the mirror. And now you know. The game is dirty. Trust is fragile. Friendship is a luxury or an illusion. But there is a strength that no one can steal from you, that of being your own ally. I remember exactly when I first learned this lesson. I was about 26 years old. I was involved in a project with people I deeply admired. I believed we were some kind of intellectual family, you know? We dreamed together, created together, laughed together, but all it took was a single wrong decision, a strategic disagreement, for everything to fall apart. There was no fight, there was silence. Little by little, I was left aside. Messages stopped being answered. The meetings continued without me. That's when I understood. There was no explicit betrayal. There was something crueler, the revelation that there was never any real loyalty. At the time, I rebelled. I questioned myself. I felt naive, weak. But today, years later, I am grateful. That moment taught me something that no book could teach so clearly. Self-sufficiency is not coldness, it is maturity. And if today I can tell you all this with conviction, it's because I was also a pawn. But I decided to stop playing other people's games and started playing my own. If you've made it this far, you're either a worshiper of Machiavelli, or you're starting to distrust your colleagues at work.